AI has changed the economics of software seemingly overnight. Not just in the way it's built, but also in how it is attacked, protected, and monetized. Organizations are suddenly discovering that a single AI feature can quietly turn a revenue engine into a cost center, but that the cost of cyber offense has collapsed to the point where anyone can find vulnerabilities at machine speed. Recent groundbreaking developments appear to have ushered in troubled times where it is dangerously easy to rush into AI without a plan. So, where do we go from here? I'm Steve Prentice, and this is the Thales Security Sessions podcast. To help us understand where we are amidst this triangle of vulnerability, defense, and monetization, I am joined today by Damien Bullot, General Manager of Software Monetization at Thales. Damien, welcome to the Thales Security Sessions podcast.
Thank you, Steve, for having me. I'm glad to be here today.
Let's start by getting into the changing economics of this AI-dominated world. In terms of monetization, you have said that, quote, AI is effectively educating the market on consumption-based pricing, end quote. Specifically, you've said that usage-based monetization is more viable now than it was in previous decades. So what is this, really, and how does it work?
This usage-based kind of model is not that new. We've been pushing for it in our jobs for some time with limited success, I have to say. We were pushing our customers to go in token-based kind of billing. We had a few customers going for it, but it was a very limited success. And people were finding the concept of paying based on usage as too complex, not predictable enough. And obviously, as you know, the finance people, they hate when things are not predictable. And so I have to say, the success was quite limited. And obviously, with the arrival of AI, the LLMs, and the business model based on tokens, it has been a huge kind of acceleration of the education of the people. And now when we are pitching, hey, what about monetizing your software through tokens? People, they get it. People immediately say, yeah, I want to do that. I want to get there. I'm not there yet, but this is definitely something I want to go for. So what we've seen again in this context is that I would say the B2C is accelerating the B2B. The business model is first understood in a B2C context because people were using the ChatGPT and Claude Anthropic of the world based on their own tokens, and they start to get it quite quickly. And then they say, yeah, of course, now that I am educated, I expect my customers to be educated. So I feel now comfortable in asking my customers to pay through this new business model. That's what's happening now. And I think it's good for the end user, right? For sure. I think the end user, the customer, they like the idea of paying only on what they use, right? On what they consume. And obviously, it should also be good long-term for the provider, people on the other side. In our case, it's more the software vendor because this is answering the need of the customer and is building a good customer intimacy where the customer feels that he can buy the way he wants to buy, right? So that's what is happening in terms of dynamic.
Is that unique in terms of the B2C driving the B2B demand? Is that a unique business case?
No, I think it's not unique. I think we've seen that before. Let's take the example of the telecommunications, right? When we started to pay for our mobile phone, right? A lot of people were pay-as-you-go, right? And at the beginning, we were kind of a bit scared by the pay-as-you-go. And at the same time, we felt, okay, I'm only going to pay when I use it. I think it's been taking times to get people used to the pay-as-you-go. And then we've seen some abuse. We've seen some issues where people were ending up with huge bills unexpected because they were traveling and because they didn't check the conditions on the roaming cost, for example. So we had a few of those, but end of the day, this has been a model that has been working for many people. And we still have pay-as-you-go, and we still have the subscription in the telecom environment. So I think the telecom industry has been doing a lot of education around those concepts of subscription, pay as you go.
Yeah.
And now this is very common when you buy your Netflix, when you buy your Amazon Prime, when you buy your Apple, there is a lot of subscriptions. And there is also some pay as you go, some consumption. When you buy, for example, some added features, added movies, added capabilities of the service that you are paying for, you are ready to pay a bit more. The telecom has been educating a lot of the B2C.
That is a really great case study. So let's turn to companies that are looking to get on board with this technique a little more, especially with AI. What have you seen in terms of early mistakes that companies have made when trying to align their value creation with value capture in AI-driven products?
Well, it's a good question because, AI has been a huge buzz and all organizations feel like they need to do something about AI to remain credible vis-a-vis the customers, to remain credible vis-a-vis the investors. And so we've seen a kind of rush to do something without much preparation. I am going to add AI to my application, to my software, for example, without knowing how much it's going to cost me. We've been meeting some of those organizations where they say, yeah, very quickly I've been able to add AI. And very quickly I've been seeing that it was costing me much more than expected. And it was potentially killing my organizations. And people had to remove the AI feature that they embedded into their product, into their application. So the lack of preparation, I mean, the speed, I would say, and the expectations have created many organizations to go too quickly towards this kind of AI features within their application. And lack of preparation. Like in AI, we know now at the consumer level, but at the enterprise level, that it can get very costly very quickly if you are not prepared. And so basically our role is to help them to understand what potentially they can track, I mean, they can monetize within their application and how much it's going to cost them. So we do provide solutions around that to, let's say, make sure that in the preparation of the launch, they have enough data to understand how much value they're going to bring and how much cost they're going to bear on the service. So this is part of some new offering that we are doing for our customers.
And that kind of leads very well to the question then, basically about AI workloads being unpredictable and kind of bursty.
Yeah.
So are there ways that software companies can design monetization models that remain fair and transparent and trusted,
Yeah.
even when usage patterns fluctuate?
This is a very good question. I talked about the fact that every organization that is buying software that is embedding AI, they want predictability, right? They want to know how much it's going to cost them.
Right.
And when we are going into these kind of models based on usage, there is a big question mark. Okay, am I going to use a lot more than expected? And am I going to have a huge bill at the end of the month that is totally unforecasted and budgeted? And that would be a big issue. And I think it's happening every day in many organizations.
Yes, it can be seen as something of a gold rush, or dare I say even a bubble, and this urgent need to AI everything out of the fear of falling behind and possibly losing business to the competition. So what's the first thing that you tell your customers?
Our recommendation is to make sure that there is constant communication with the customer. So meaning as a provider, you have the duty to inform where your customers stand in terms of consumption. I think it's the more communication, the better. Customer, you reach this threshold. For the time being, this is still part of what was, let's say, forecasted. But then when you are going above, you need to send more communication and more communication to make sure that the customer knows exactly what he's doing. And I don't think that many organizations are already ready to do this kind of constant communication to avoid the sticker shock of the huge bill at the end of the month or at the end of the year. So that's our recommendation. Try to enable within the application, within our software, some communication, all right, with the customer to make sure that everybody is clear on what's happening and no one is surprised at the end of the month. I mean, I was making the analogy of the telecommunications maybe 20 years ago, right? We were not having this kind of communication. Hey, you are roaming in the US, or you are roaming in a different country, and your daily cost is about this, right? We were finding out at the end of the month on the bill, which was maybe a good news for the telecom operator at the time, but it was a super bad news for some of the users. So that cannot happen anymore. We've learned that. So you need to make sure that your customer is aware where he stands in terms of usage and in terms of cost.
This sort of reminds me of the whole emergence of cloud storage, and moving data, and the models that grew from that. It kind of sounds like the same kind of thing, in the sense that this is embedded in the metabolism of a company. We're not talking about some sort of extraneous thing like buying an extra photocopier. We're talking about the thing that makes the company live and breathe. And cloud was that 10, 15 years ago. And now AI is not, again, an add-on to a Microsoft Office product. As you said, organizations are judged on their integration of AI in terms of the perceived value for the customer. That's interesting stuff.
Yeah.
So what do you see as a future for this? Are subscriptions disappearing? Are there going to be hybrid models?
I don't think that subscription is going to disappear overnight. I think this is still a high expectations from the customers, whatever the customer is, a consumer or an organization. I mean, in our case, we have more expertise around the organizations. And for some product, they are going to be still happy to pay for subscriptions. And I think that's why it will not disappear. And from some other products, they will be more ready to take some risk or to pay only when they use. And that's where the business model of, let's say, usage-based billing is going to be coming. So I see a combination, a hybrid world where many organizations will sell based on this combination of subscription and usage, but usage in a controlled manner with, once again, a lot of communications to make sure that the customer knows where he stands.
So to move on to another area that's grabbed everyone's attention recently, we're talking about Mythos. Back in March of 2026 and the months that followed, the remarkable achievements and the going rogue of various applications at that time as the AI expanded its powers. What are your comments of how this impacted the marketplace?
I think it's created a kind of craziness, I would call it like that, because suddenly people understood that their software, their application was potentially vulnerable, and people with, let's say, limited resources could find vulnerabilities in their software and then exploit them at light speed, right, basically. And that's something that was kind of unexpected. I mean, it was expected to come one day, but no one, I think, was expecting this to happen that quickly. And so now people that are having their application that is being used outside of their environment, outside of their whatever, if it is their cloud or infrastructure, if it is used outside of their control, they have this risk of someone trying to open the code, find vulnerabilities, and exploit them. So that's a new world. And this is pretty scary because we see that thanks to the Mythos and the like, you, me, have kind of enough resources to find a good target and to exploit them and to make either a lot of damage or a lot of money by ransomware or whatever. So this is a new world.
Does this change the whole approach to security to be one of raising friction, increasing attackers' cost as a sort of defense?
I don't think that this is fundamentally changing everything in cybersecurity. This is changing the speed of things, the timescales. We were having a bit of time to correct when some vulnerabilities were found. And now we cannot afford to wait, right? So I think the best way is to make sure that people are not capable of finding those vulnerabilities too quickly or too easily. And so the game is now it was the same before, to try to create some friction, right? To make it more difficult for people to find those vulnerabilities. And so that's a bit what we are trying to to promote, right? What we've been doing in Thales software monetization is to provide solutions to protect software, right? Been doing that for a good 20 years. And I have to say, not everyone, not all organizations were taking this matter seriously. Some of them were, as we have a lot of customers that were doing it very well. But now we feel like now everyone has understood, oh, with this kind of risk where someone with very limited resources can do so much damage, I need to do something about my software. I cannot, for example, send my software within a device that is not in my control because now someone, like you and me can open it and find vulnerabilities and do a lot of damage, right? So what we are trying to promote now is to say, hey, I think there is minimal kind of thing that you can do to protect yourself, to create good software protection, let's say encryption of your software, to make sure that you are making it difficult for the LLMs to open it. So we've been making some tests. So we wanted to check how strong was our technology against the Mythos of the world. And so what we did is that we created a software, an application, and we inserted 10 vulnerabilities. And then we put it through the Anthropic Opus. And in a matter of 5 minutes, Opus find 8 out of the 10 vulnerabilities. So without any protection, yes, the Opus of the world, I mean, whatever LLMs, they're going to find vulnerabilities and quite quickly and without being an expert, right? You and me can do it. And so what we did is that, okay, now let's try to protect it with what we have, with a solution from Thales Sentinel. And after the protection, we put the LLM in play and we asked to find vulnerabilities. And so after a few minutes, no results. And then the tool asked if he could use some additional hacking tools, right? And then he developed his own kind of tools as well. And after hours and millions of tokens, the Opus told us, hey, we are wasting our time. I think it's not going anywhere. And we propose to stop. So that was a pretty good kind of outcome for us. Honestly, we didn't know what to expect, right? We didn't know how strong was our encryption. And it proved to be strong enough to have Opus telling us, hey, I'm wasting my time and you are wasting your tokens. Let's stop it there. It's not going anywhere. So that's where we are, trying to create this kind of security around people who want to protect their assets. And for the time being, we know that we have something that is bringing value in a sense that this is making it harder and more expensive. So we know for sure that everything is breakable, right? There is no absolute security, but we want to make sure that we make it hard, time-consuming, and costly. And for the time being, we know that our application is delivering the promise.
There are two interesting statements that you made there. One is exactly that everything is breakable. And a few minutes ago, you also said you know things are changing much more quickly than anybody expected. The pace of change is just so quick.
Yeah.
This is a very compelling case study that I think everyone should become aware of.
Yeah.
But in the meantime as well, considering that some of our listeners are in the decision-making area, the strategic side of business rather than the IT side specifically, what kind of signals should they pay attention to? What noise around Mythos and around, again, the increasing pace of AI-based security and monetization, what kinds of things should they be looking for and what kind of hype can they avoid?
It's a good question. I think we've been really much focusing on Mythos, and I think Anthropic as an organization has been doing a lot of great marketing work in creating a buzz, right? Saying that, hey, Mythos is this cybersecurity LLM that's going to break everything. Well, I think Mythos is one of them, and they're going to have new versions, and ChatGPT is going to come with their own, and the Chinese are going to come with their own. And we can expect all major LLM providers will have their own version. And it's going to continue to evolve very quickly. So I think we should not focus on any specific LLMs. I think we should just accept the fact that they're going to go stronger. And it's not in a matter of years, it's in a matter of weeks. And so better start early, right? And better keeping a look at it and better improving the security along the way, right? We know that it's a race, right? It's a race between the offense and the defense. And so we know that today we have something that is valuable for defense. And then we need to continue to upgrade the security, upgrade the defense. Basically, what we've been doing for many years in all organizations, try to upgrade the defense on a constant basis. We were not doing on everything, right? And we were not doing on this kind of applications and software in the past systematically because we didn't feel the absolute need. Now the need is quite obvious. So organizations need to accept that it's going to be broken at some point, and they need to make sure that it's going to be harder to break than the next application, right? That's something I like to say, that in this kind of world of cybersecurity and the Mythos threat, the goal is not to outrun the bear. The goal is just to outrun your neighbor. And that's where we are, and that's where we are trying to help our customers.
It's funny because that vision came to my head earlier on in the conversation, exactly about not needing to outrun the bear, but to outrun the person that you're with.
Yeah.
The last question I'd like to ask to wrap up the strategic and monetization side of this: if you were advising a board on AI monetization strategy tomorrow morning, given that there's a lot of money being spent on AI right now, a fundamental question has to be, how is this going to make money for us? To help answer that, what would be perhaps the most important governance or security capability that they should establish to ensure trust, compliance, and sustainable revenue? Admittedly, that's a big question.
Big question, but I will have a pretty simple answer. I think the answer is do not rush. Step back, think, prepare, build a plan, and then deliver. We see too many people rushing to show they do something to their customers or to their investors, and then they do it very badly and they put their organizations at risk, right? And it's true in terms of monetization, but it's true as well in security. So our recommendation is step back, try to understand, find the right providers. Obviously, we are one of them. We were around 20 years ago. We're going to be around in 20 years because this is who we are as an organization, Thales. And we've been supporting our customers for many years, and we will continue to do so for many years. And we've been constantly upgrading our security. So we believe that we are credible. Do not rush. Try to look around who is going to be the best organization to support you in terms of security and in terms of making more money from your applications. When we talk specifically about monetization, we see that it's very often overlooked and totally underestimated. People rush to sell and they don't often step back to think if they could sell differently or do that better. And this is where we are helping our customers to try to tell them, hey, maybe you leave a lot of money on the table, and maybe by doing such and such, a different business model, a different market, a different segment, a different bundle of your product, different packaging of your existing products. And maybe you can make a lot more additional revenue by just creating this new packaging of products. So it's like everything. It's about trying to step back, understanding the data, preparing a plan, and executing on the plan. So I think it's pretty standard in every organization.
Very wise words, sort of the Zen of advancement.
And what is new with Mythos is that the cost of the offense is suddenly very, very cheap. I like to make the analogy with the medieval time, right? Even beyond that, in any times, when the attack is becoming so much cheaper than the defense, then we are in troubled times. Mythos is creating troubled times where it's so cheap to attack and it's getting so expensive to defend that we're going to have to find a new cycle where it's going to be much more expensive to attack by creating very strong defense. I like to share the analogy of the medieval time when you were building a castle. You were safe of the bows and arrows, right? That was stones against arrows. And then the gunpowder and then the cannons arrived, and then you're not safe anymore in your castle because a few cannons can destroy a castle you put decades to build. we had this cycle where the attack got so much cheaper than the defense. And I think we are again in this cycle where the attack is getting so much cheaper than the defense. So organizations will have to invest and to create those expensive refortification. And honestly, only the organization, the companies that will have the resources, the means to create those expensive refortification will be safe. I think that's something we need to keep in mind, is that those dynamics will be requiring a lot of funding, a lot of planning to make sure that we're going to be safe. And then we're going to make the cost of the attack much more expensive.
A few minutes ago, you advised not to rush. But when people hear this kind of perspective, that attacks are becoming much cheaper and maybe their company is caught sort of on the back foot with regards to defense in depth, how would you reconcile these two concepts, that the urgency is greater but still not to rush?
I'm not saying wait a couple of years. I'm saying plan. Build a plan that's going to be sustainable for the long run. Don't try to put a patch. Don't try to run into a solution that's going to be valid only for a couple of weeks, right? Don't rush to select a provider that's going to disappear in 6 months. I think there is, for sure, a huge sense of urgency to work on it, but make sure that you have the right data and you have a good plan and you can execute on the plan on the long run.
I love how you bring the medieval angle into the narrative, but that just takes me back further, actually, to The Art of War by Sun Tzu, which is about a 2,500-year-old document on warfare.
Yeah.
But there's a reason why it sells so well today as a business book. So you have brought some very wise management philosophy into the maelstrom of the AI revolution, and I am most grateful for your time. So Damien, thank you very much for joining us here today on the Thales Security Sessions podcast.
Steve, it was a pleasure. I enjoyed the interaction. It was a great session and I would be glad to do it again anytime. So thank you for having me.
Remember, if you like what you hear, be sure to subscribe and tell a friend or a colleague or a client or all of them about the Thales Security Sessions podcast. Not just for the next one, but for our archive of highly useful and still relevant past conversations. We will be back again soon with another episode and another discussion on the topics that you need to know about to successfully carry on in the business of information security. Until then, I'm Steve Prentice. Thanks for listening.